If China's South China Sea expansion is the stick, the Belt and Road Initiative is the carrot for getting other countries to acknowledge China's growing power. This initiative launched during Xi Jinping's visit to Kazakhstan in September 2013, when he called for the development of a, quote, Silk Road economic belt, development of overland roads and rail networks through Central Asia. The following month, during a visit to Indonesia, he called for the development of a Maritime Silk Road. These two efforts are now referred to as the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI for short, and consists of a series of ports, railways, and other infrastructure to facilitate the transport of goods between China and Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. The plan solves a number of problems for China. Over the years of breakneck development in China, it has developed significant overcapacity in engineering, materials, and labor. Taking on major infrastructure projects overseas helps absorb some of that surplus and keeps employment at stable levels in China. Also, links between China and the EU, the two largest markets in the world, can stand for some improvement, which would allow China to reduce its dependence on exports to the U.S. China is also becoming increasingly dependent on Middle East oil and needs to ensure it has reliable access. The plan has the potential to solve problems for other countries as well. In the areas targeted by the BRI, there is a clear deficit in infrastructure. Many of the potential beneficiaries lack the resources and know-how to build what they need and see the Chinese offers as a godsend. Nevertheless, there are drawbacks as well. The countries participating in BRI know that there is a cost to doing business with China. First, the effort smacks of neo-tributarianism. Under the old tribute system, which we discussed earlier, you could trade with China as long as you acknowledged the superiority of the emperor. Under BRI, you can receive Chinese investment, but only if you respect Chinese interests. So, for example, if you complain about China's military reach in the South China Sea or treatment of ethnic minorities, no ports for you. A second risk is that you must accept China's terms for the projects, including the use of Chinese labor and materials, which is often unpopular in third countries that have their own employment needs. Chinese methods also tend to disregard property rights and the environment, which more than once has caused headaches for the recipient countries. A third major risk is the debt trap. China is willing to extend loans at terms that are consistent with, or sometimes more favorable than international lending practices, but even then, countries have had difficulty paying back the loans. After all, does a small country like Laos really need high-speed rail? In one famous case study, China gave Sri Lanka's then-president a multi-billion-dollar line of credit to build a port in Hambantota, his hometown. However, only a handful of ships stopped to use the port facilities, and it quickly became insolvent. In 2015, to gain relief from the debt payments, the new Sri Lankan government turned over the port and 1,500 acres of land around it to China for 99 years. This move raised concern that China was preying on vulnerable countries who are hungry for overseas investment. In cases where third country officials stand to benefit personally from Chinese investment, BRI can also fuel corruption and undermine young democracies. Perhaps even more worrisome is that the Belt and Road Initiative may facilitate the development of overseas military bases for China, often referred to as a string of pearls across the Indian Ocean. The string of pearls was first hypothesized in a 2000 report by the consulting firm Booz Allen Hamilton, not based on intelligence, but rather a prediction based on China's growing power and need to secure access to energy resources in the Middle East. China for years denied that it had such designs and blasted the concept of overseas military bases as a sign of hegemonic intent. But the idea must have intrigued them. The Chinese people were highly supportive when the Chinese Navy began in 2008 to participate in anti-piracy operations off the coast of East Africa and in the Arabian Sea. The Chinese military also helped evacuate Chinese nationals from areas affected by the Arab Spring in 2011. In March 2016, China started construction on its first overseas military base in Djibouti, which they call a, quote, logistical support facility. Hambantota will likely serve a similar function, and China will probably be able to secure rights to build facilities in Myanmar, Pakistan, and other areas as well. BRI certainly serves as an effective shell for the development of the string of pearls. Another key component of Xi Jinping's great power ambitions, Made in China 2025, is a national strategic plan introduced in 2015 to shift China's robust manufacturing capability from low-tech, labor-intensive products to that of being a major player in high-tech, cutting-edge technologies. This plan aims to upgrade the manufacturing capabilities of Chinese industries, growing from labor-intensive workshops into a more technology-intensive powerhouse. To gain independence from foreign suppliers, the initiative also aims to increase the domestic content of car manufacturing to 70% by 2025. It also encourages increased production of high-tech products and services, with its semiconductor industry central to the plan, partly because without access to Western chips, huge swaths of Chinese industries could be crippled. Other industries integral to Made in China 2025 include aerospace, artificial intelligence, biotech, high-speed rail, electric vehicles, pharmaceuticals, and robotics manufacturing, many of which have been dominated by foreign companies. In many ways, China has been able to leapfrog ahead. In the late 90s and early 2000s, for example, China was able to develop a world-leading cellular network before they even had provided landline telephone access to much of the country. Similarly, China is emerging as one of the world leaders in electric vehicles, even though it never developed a decent indigenous automobile sector based on internal combustion engines. Another method that China has used to try to rapidly increase its technology level is the 1,000 Talents program, which started in 2008 and offers very generous cash grants to overseas Chinese and other foreign professors. A U.S. national intelligence estimate in 2018 determined that the program's goal was to facilitate the legal and illicit transfer of U.S. technology, intellectual property, and know-how to China. In November 2019, the U.S. Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations and Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs determined that the 1,000 Talents program was a threat to national security. Since the start of 2020, numerous U.S. and Canadian participants in the program have come under investigation for their involvement in the program, and several have been arrested. Another method that China has used that has gotten a lot of attention in the media is simply stealing the technology it wants. Some theft relies on co-opting Chinese employees of foreign firms in China and overseas to steal the documentation, files, and hardware China wants. China also has a robust cyber espionage capability to extract the technological data it wants by penetrating computer systems around the world. Many countries cry foul at the Chinese theft of this technology, but, as mentioned in my discourse about the Opium Wars, China sees technology and national security as inextricably linked. It remains unpersuaded by Western appeals to abandon the practice. One final word on the technology question. Many Chinese tech companies have become world leaders in their fields, such as Huawei in 5G equipment, Alibaba in business-to-business commerce, and TikTok in short video sharing. All of these are private companies and to a large extent have become successful through hard work and innovation, not unlike successful U.S. firms. The problem remains, however, that as Chinese companies, they are required by Chinese law to comply with government requests, whether it be for access to information or allowing real-time government monitoring of their traffic. Essentially, the CCP can compel these companies to do what it wants, and any assurances it gives that those companies will not act as agents of the Chinese government are worthless. The only way to combat Chinese cyber intrusions is through rigorous cyber defense. The risk of using any Chinese origin technology service must be carefully weighed against whatever benefits they provide. Since 2018, Chinese firms have faced a backlash from the US, Europe, and others because such government support provides an unfair competitive advantage and is inconsistent with Chinese responsibilities as a member of the World Trade Organization. As a result, Beijing has de-emphasized the Made in China 2025 phrase, even though the program remains in place. Remember what I said earlier about the importance of propaganda. The next lecture explores Xi's efforts to control overseas Chinese and China's increasingly belligerent diplomacy.